So welcome everybody. We're here in Grand Junction at Mesa University, and I want to welcome everybody for joining us. We're here in Western Colorado today. It was at Delta, Montrose, Grand Junction, really areas that are leading the state and even leading the country in success in containing coronavirus, and we really applaud the efforts here in Western Colorado. And in addition to being able to successfully contain it in relatively low numbers thus far, right? Progress is only as good as tomorrow's or next week's and next month's result. They've also been very successful at being hosts to significant tourism over summer. Of course, in Western Colorado, we also have many of our world-class ski areas. Winter recreation is coming on and working on having a safe experience for people from across the country, and if they're allowed to come here from across the world as well. We certainly hope that other countries allow their residents to come to Colorado. We're joined by Senator Kerry Donovan and Representative Janice. I want to thank them, real leaders in our state legislature. I want to thank CMU President Tim Foster. Moments ago, I joined one of their classes. To show how quick Tim Foster, as an entrepreneurial leader at CMU, was able to move, they said, we're not going to let any crisis go to waste. We're going to create a class called Leadership in a Time of Pandemic. This was not a class that existed in prior years. It exists this year. And what an amazing experience for these students, right? To be here while this is happening, learning about the global, national, and local leadership challenges of a pandemic. I was very impressed by the questions and comments of the students. It's a really unique course, and I applaud CMU's leadership in doing what we can, as we're all trying to do in this crisis. You know, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And I know that that's an experience that those student leaders will carry with them throughout their lives. I also want to applaud CMU for their success in responding and adapting to CMU. They have very low virus numbers. I asked both students and the administration, well, you know, what are you doing differently? How are you doing that? We're all hearing in the news, of course, about what's happening at CU. There are many other colleges that are also handling it well. Fort Lewis, UNC, very low levels. Part of what they're doing at CMU, they're to discourage parties. They're having outdoor events, so they're having concerts every week. They're having students outdoors in a safe way, where the university is able to monitor the activities and make sure that there's a good social distancing, and just providing that alternative. Because my kids are only 8 and 6, but I know enough about parenting to know that when they're 19 and 20, the answer is not no, you can't have fun. The answer's got to be, here's how to have fun in a safe way. And so I hope our other universities can really step up and do a better job in doing that, and really look at some of the examples here at Colorado Mesa. I had a busy morning. I was at Delta Memorial Hospital, Delta Middle School, just constructed the brand new middle school there. It was great to see a few other visits. Before we get into that, I want to give a brief update on wildfires. We know that Pine Gulch Fire yesterday reached 100% containment, and of course we're very relieved. That is the largest fire in the history of our state. We were somewhat fortunate in where it was located, minimal damage, but some damage to some oil and gas assets and some cabins, but largest fire in our state history. We also have burning right now, and unfortunately still spreading, the third largest fire in our state history. That's in Larimer County, the Cameron Peak Fire. So in the same year, we had the largest and the third largest fire in our state history. Of course, the Grizzly Creek Fire, by comparison, much smaller, notable because of its proximity to Highway 70, Glenwood Canyon, and of course the impact that's going to have with mudslides and avalanches, and the work that CDOT and others are doing to try to keep that safe. We also, in this area, Montrose has suppressed the virus to a level where they're able to advance to level 1. We know Mesa County is in the Protect Our Neighbors phase, really having the maximum local authority to address the pandemic. Where we are as a state, 67,926 total positive cases, 709 new positive cases. We are now at 2,037 lives lost to coronavirus, and on behalf of Colorado, I want to express our condolences and my personal condolences to those who lost family members, loved ones, and friends as well. We have a 2-week positivity average of 3.3% statewide. Just to highlight Western Colorado and how it's doing better, in Mesa County, It's about a third that. The 2-week positivity average for testing is 1.3%. Delta County is 2.2. Montrose a little bit higher, 3.5, but that is still favorable compared to many other places. Part of the success in reducing the positivity rate and stopping infections early has been testing. Here in Mesa County, testing is available to Mesa County Fairgrounds, free, quick, easy, Tuesday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. You don't need an appointment, you don't need ID, you don't need a doctor's note. If you have any flu-like symptoms, a cough, fever, stuffed nose, go get tested. It takes 15 minutes. You'll get the results within 2 days. You can also get tested if you don't have symptoms but were exposed. So if somebody coughed on you a week ago, if a family member or friend had COVID, by all means, if you think you might have been exposed, you go a week after. It doesn't do any good to go a day or two after. Go a week or 7, 8 days after and do that. We also have these free, quick, easy, large-scale facilities in Pepsi Center in Denver, Aurora Sports Complex, Waterworld in Federal Heights, Citadel Mall in Colorado Springs, Pueblo County Fairgrounds. There's also 40 smaller community testing sites. They have different hours of operation. You can check them out at covid19.colorado.gov. I really enjoyed visiting Delta Middle School earlier today. Really great to see the best practices implemented there, the cohorting, the mask wearing, the integration of the outdoors. They have a new outdoor obstacle course the kids were enjoying. The state is continuing to provide free medical grade masks for every staff member at schools that work with students. In Delta County, that's been 800 masks a week. In Mesa County, about 4,000 masks a week. In Montrose, about 1,100 masks per week. 47,000 to the Western Slope each week, medical grade masks. Later today, we'll be touring 2 projects that are part of Grand Junction's Can Do Revitalizing Main Street initiative. I'm very excited about that. The outdoor seating project from the Grand Junction Downtown Development Association. We're really trying to model statewide efforts around outdoor seating, around some of the efforts in Grand Junction, Steamboat, really some other communities in Western Colorado are leading the way. CDOT has also made funding available that Grand Junction is using to support restaurants and businesses with grants to expand outdoor options. We're very excited about that. I visited the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club, which got $40,000 from our COVID-19 relief fund. HelpColoradoNow.org distributed $1.5 million to 60 organizations in Delta, Mesa, and Montrose County, needed resources at a needed time. And we also visited the hospital. It's really important to get a sense of kind of how our hospitals are doing and learning from how we can make sure that everybody has access to health care they need and how we can save people money on health care, including the bipartisan work of the legislature to put access to telehealth and telemedicine into law. Again, one of those, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, one of those positive changes that will come out of this pandemic is increased access. That means better access in rural areas, telehealth and telemedicine, and reduce costs, saving people money on health care. Now I'd like to turn it over to State Senator Kerry Donovan, who represents a big part of Western Colorado, including Delta and Gunnison and Eagle. Senator Donovan is a fierce advocate for our mountain communities, for the Western Slope, for ag, and she has done a great job rising the challenge that we have in the state legislature with her important work on saving people money on health care as well. And I'm happy to turn over to Senator Donovan.
Thank you so much, Governor, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. It is always great to kind of symbolically bring the state capitol out to the Western Slope, and I always really appreciate the Governor's ongoing commitment to do that. I think it might be your congressional habit of visiting, of coming out to this part of the state, but we certainly appreciate it because what I heard from someone in Delta this morning is you forget about what you don't see. And so it is particularly nice to bring the eyes of the Capitol out to see and talk to the people of Western Colorado to hear what their experience has been over the past handful of months. And what has it been? Well, in early March, the mountain communities of Colorado were the first ones to deal directly with COVID-19. In fact, at that time, we were still in session in the Denver Capitol, kind of having this removed conversation of what was next, while tragedy was coming to the doorsteps of the high country. And tragedy did indeed strike very intimately in some cases with loss of loved ones and community leaders. So it became very real, very quick. I'm really proud of the General Assembly and the governor for what we did as a unified voice during the time when the General Assembly was shut down and the administration was doing an incredible job addressing and accommodating and evolving with an unknown and unprecedented pandemic. We were talking about what can we do next and how could we work together. And so some of those bills that we did pass and were signed into law in partnership as bipartisan and through the administration and General Assembly really tried to get at the heart of addressing those that were most impacted. And so I would really like to highlight the Climber bill, which will really focus on small businesses that were most impacted by the pandemic that we see at this time. Right? Recovery is not complete. These answers are not the total solution, but they are a start to what we could address what we were seeing at that end of ski season, critical economic time for the mountain communities and for the state. And so the Climber Fund kind of leverages the assets of the state to create some loans for small businesses. We're looking at businesses between 5 and 100 employees, and we hope that the loans will probably average out to be about $100,000. That's real meaningful money to small businesses, and so we hope we can keep those businesses going forward as the M in Climber means Main Street. And we really want to keep our main streets thriving by investing and providing support for these small businesses. That loan process will hopefully be up and running by the end of the calendar year, and I'm really proud of the speed at which we're standing up what will be a really great program. So if you are a small business looking for help, stay tuned for that Climber Fund and how that can help you. We're also directing our focus with that bill on those industries most hit. Arts and entertainment, the resort business, restaurants, along those lines, as well as there is language in that bill to make sure that the hardest hit areas of Colorado, like the Western Slope, are prioritized through that bill. We did a lot of other work that I'm really proud of, but that's certainly one I wanted to highlight, along with the READY Grant. And what READY Grant is a great example of is that's an existing program that we had now. Colorado's gonna have to be really smart with our finances over the coming years. And READY is a good example of using an existing program that we're gonna have to try to elevate and make sure that it's fully utilized, so that every dollar that we have in our budget, we make sure gets out to the people of Colorado in the coming years to make sure that we ensure a robust and complete economic recovery. It was great to work on these bills across the aisle, across chambers, and across the different levels of government at Colorado. And the last one that I was really proud to be a part of is the Rural Jumpstart bill. This was a bill that we revisited and strengthened to make it available for more people to utilize. And my partner on that was the representative, and I want her to be able to cover more in detail the great work of Rural Jumpstart, since it is kind of the initiative and the seed of Rural Jumpstart comes from her home district. So I will end my remarks there, but again, just am so appreciative of this time where we know that the pandemic left no part of the state untouched, but it is still important. If we say that, we also show it by being in these communities across different parts of the state.
Thank you, and we're joined by Representative Rich, who has worked very effectively in a bipartisan way for Western Colorado, and we're proud to turn it over to her.
Thank you very much, Governor. I want to also give a shout out to CMU. They have done an incredible job. I'm a huge fan of what they have done in this crisis, and I so appreciate all the hard work and the success that they're having, and I wish them continued success. I'm glad that Senator Donovan mentioned the Rural Jumpstart modifications. This is really already starting to help Mesa County. I was just talking with the Grand Junction Economic Partnership last week, and there are already other businesses that are starting to look at Mesa County because of the modifications. This bill extends the program for another 5 years. It loosens the non-compete clause, and it allows companies that were currently barred to now apply for the Jumpstart funds. It incentivizes businesses to locate and create jobs in rural Colorado by providing relief from state income tax and sales tax and local business personal property tax. and also employee relief as well. This has been a proven success project in Mesa County, and we're hopeful because everyone that worked on that bill, we're all rural legislators, and we're very hopeful and excited that this will be good for all of rural Colorado. One of the other bills that I thought was very important in light of COVID was concerning the 211 communication system for referral of essential services. There are 4 211 centers, and Mesa County has one of those. And it provides human service resources related to COVID, public health emergency, and we were able to get some of the CARES Act fund to fund that 211 center at least through December of 2020. But if you aren't familiar with the 211 call center, it's a service that helps people navigate over 7,500 health and human service resources. In Mesa County, the top needs have been legal, consumer and public safety, healthcare, individual, family, and community support, and housing and information services. So I was very happy to be a prime sponsor of that bill in the House, and I was pleased to have that passed because we're in tough times right now, and anything that we can do to make it easier on our businesses and also on our fellow citizens. I know that mental health is going to be a huge issue probably this next year, and I look forward to working on those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Allow me to take some questions. Charles?
First of all, I want to say I'm glad that Jesse Paul isn't here to dominate everything.
There you go.
Here, here.
So, I know from the beginning, when school started opening up, you've been calling out for students to, be careful, to social distance, to say the.
You mean colleges or?
Colleges.
K-12?
College,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
And so what you're seeing now in CU, I'm sure is pretty dismaying to you. I saw you earlier talking to some students here and asking the question, why isn't the same thing happening here? So I'm wondering what you've learned here, what you think you might be able to export to other schools.
Yeah. Well, I think what CMU is doing well is it's providing good social experiences in a safe way for students. So outdoor concerts every week, a lot of activities that can be done safely outside. They are restricting students in the dorms to students who live in that dorm, so minimizing cross-dorm contamination. We know the virus spreads much faster indoors. And then of course they're doing extensive surveillance testing. In fact, President Foster was telling me he didn't know if there'd be enough student demand for it, but the students are doing their part and getting tested, right? So they're offering it, and several hundred a week. Students are asymptomatic students. It's very important just to see the level of the virus before it takes off, because after everybody's sick and in hospitals, it's too late. You need to act. You want to start earlier as well. So I think it's really a number of things. I think what across our state colleges need to do is provide safe social experiences for students, because telling a student not to have fun never works. It's more about how you can have fun in a reasonably safe way, and how you can structure those opportunities to have some university oversight over those activities.
Governor, it's David Clue at Denver 7. We probably haven't heard a lot about this because we haven't needed it, but the state is leasing the Denver Convention Center for COVID overflow and has been for months. Given the tens of thousands we're spending on that facility every single day, and given the COVID numbers in the state right now, is that the best way to be spending tax dollars? And I do have a follow-up if that's okay.
Yeah, we certainly hope we never need it. We haven't needed it so far. All the conventions have canceled, so there's not alternative needs for that space. What I've told the convention center and Denver Tourism Bureau and others is let me know as soon as you think you might need it, as soon as conventions are willing to come back. There are, at some hotels, small get-togethers of 100, 200 people. There are meetings, but in terms of like the Outdoor Industry Trade Show, all the big shows that happen, they've been canceled through the end of the year.
Is the cost worth having that as an insurance policy at this point in COVID in Colorado?
Well, absolutely. You never want to be in a situation where you run out of hospital beds, and given that there are not any conventions occurring or happening for the end of the year, There's no other need for that space or other use for that space that I'm aware of. If there's other folks who have higher and better uses for it, we'd be happy to consider those.
Could I ask a question? Yeah. So I know that you're visiting downtown here later. What kind of things will you be talking to the downtown business owners about?
Well, having thriving downtown areas is really important to the health of our economy, also our quality of life, and so really about how we can make sure that as the weather turns colder in winter, how can we be safe, have more outdoor dining experiences, how can the state and the city and the Chamber of Commerce help achieve that, how can we make sure that we bring additional life and economic activity to our downtown areas, including Grand Junction.
Hi, Governor Mary England with Colorado Politics. Given that the worst outbreaks in the state now are tied to college campuses, when are you considering giving restaurants and bars with food services a break? Because obviously they're not the problem. When are you going to give them a break and let them go to midnight?
Well, here in Grand Junction, I believe they're open till, they can serve till 2 in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the case, certainly till midnight. That's really locally administered. We encourage communities that are ready to move forward with more late night activity to do that in a safe way. To be clear, nobody has to close at any time, Marianne. I think you're talking about when they last serve alcohol. People dine at all hours, 24-hour restaurants are open. People can eat at all hours. It was simply a matter of the crowded nightlife aspect that has been proven to lead to large-scale outbreaks and the dangers of that in a pandemic. You see that across the country and across the world. In the United Kingdom, they recently moved to 10 o'clock. I think it's a harder curfew there for closure. Here, nobody has to close at any time. It's just a cessation of alcohol after a certain hour. In some areas it's 11, in some it's midnight, in some it's 2 in the morning. As I said, I'm against them all. I think people should be able to drink at any hour. I hope the legislature moves it to 4 a.m. or gets rid of it altogether, with subject to local control. I mean, if a city wants to say midnight last call, I wouldn't vote for that in my city, but a city can do that. But we want to be a thriving state for nightlife, whether that's Denver, Grand Junction, Pueblo, and certainly part of that is that 24-hour nightlife experience, and we hope to work with the legislature to increase local flexibility.
I know you have a roundtable discussion with Raw on your agenda today. What kind of things will you be discussing, and why is that important?
Yeah, I met with Raw last time. I was in Mesa County as well. It's really great to hear from folks that represent communities of color in Mesa County, some of the fastest growing demographics, and how we can better integrate people of color successfully into everyday life in Mesa County. What are some of the barriers they face? How can we address those? How can we just be a welcoming part of the state for folks from all different walks of life and all parts of the world?
Hey, Governor Jesse at the Colorado Sun. A few weeks ago, you said that you were looking at the Southern Hemisphere towards, ideas on how to safely operate businesses and ski resorts during the winter months. I'm wondering if you can share any insights that you've gleaned from looking at, countries like Argentina and Australia.
Yeah, that was, I think, specifically ski resorts, I think was the question. So first of all, we have some experience in Colorado. We were the only state in the country and the only resort in North America that actually was able to reopen last ski season. It was just Arapahoe Basin, and the snow didn't last as long as we would have liked. It would have been open in July, but it was open for 2 weeks in June. And we have a working group with all of the ski resorts in Colorado. Many of them we're associated with or involved with, or in some cases, like Vail Resorts, even run ski areas in the Southern Hemisphere. And so we're using all of that knowledge to work on the local guidelines and recommendations with county health departments, taking into account the unique nature of each mountain community. Just as an example, you'll have smaller resorts where it's mostly local residents or Coloradans that ski. You have other resorts that are mostly people from other states or in normal times other countries, but if they're not allowed to come here, at least other states. So just the different situations in the different communities. A lot of the overriding push is the town experience on the safety side. The slopes are wide open, they're outside, they're relatively safe. There's obviously some pinch points like lift lines, rentals. The protocols to handle that are all being developed very well by members of the ski industry working with their county health departments in the state. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, Dr. Jeff Core, our health director, has talked about being able to test in Mason County, but equipment is really tough to get a hold of. And being at CMU, maybe they could do it here. We have, St. Mary's and Community, or we have I live near Fruta, a very fine small hospital in Fruta. If we had the testing equipment, it looks like the whole western slope would really benefit from that. I mean, it's a short trip from Montrose or.
So I was at Delta Memorial Hospital, so they're testing, they work with the state lab, and so we do 2-day turnaround. Generally, our main goal in the processing of the testing, which is where the equipment comes in, the administration of the test, that is easier, it gets shipped anywhere all the time. On the processing side, we've been trying to get down to a day or two, largely successfully, because there was a period of time where the whole country was like 7-8 days, a lot of the national labs. That's not very helpful to anybody. Worth doing, but by the time you got it back, you were either in a hospital or better. You really need to know earlier. So the state lab is now at about a 2-day turnaround. That's average, so it's sometimes 1.5, sometimes 2.5, but it's very close to 2 days. And then a lot of the additional lab partners that we've contracted with, doesn't matter where they are, by the way. I think there's North Carolina, there's Colorado, they're all over, but we've got that turnaround back down to about 2 days, including from Western Slope testing, including Mesa County Fairgrounds testing, 3 days max, but generally 2 days.
I understand that, but I just want to.
Yeah, so the equipment, as you can imagine, is back ordered many months. We would love to have more test processing equipment, including in Western Colorado. We will acquire that as soon as it can be shipped by companies, but it is backlogged many months.
Oh, okay, so,
Charles?
we brought up the fires on I-70, that shutdown on I-70. That happens, not the fires, but the shutdown on the highway, when it can, every couple of years, and usually for a couple of weeks. Most people in the Front Range don't know how devastating that is to us on an economic standpoint. Are we finally going to see any kind of discussion, serious discussion at the state level to find an alternate route that doesn't involve another 4-hour drive?
So, I think when it comes to transportation and infrastructure, this is one of the areas that I'm really looking forward to bipartisan collaboration with the legislature. When you look at all the needs across our state, it always comes down to resources. We would love to work with members of the legislature on a long-term funding solution with a bondable piece to address some of that need, and that includes priorities in Western Colorado like Lebanon Canyon. Great. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.